the premier online speed chess tournament. A knockout filled with tension, drama, quick tactics, and shocking moments.
Oh my gosh!
For the last 7 years and counting, the best blitz and bullet players in the world have flocked to chess.com to prove their worth at this format. Excitement reigns every year with major upsets and intense battles. This year, 12 invitees and 4 qualifiers face off for the title. Dozens have tried, but only 2 have ever worn this crown.
Magnus makes it look easy.
Hikaru made over! He wins the Speed Chess Championship his 5th in a row.
Who will be this year's Blitz King? It's time to find out. Welcome to the 2023 Speed Chess Championship, presented by Coinbase.
Welcome back to the Speed Chess Championship presented by Coinbase. This year it's the 2023 edition alongside Danya Naroditsky, Danny Wrench right here, and Danya, it's underway. Yesterday was the start of the event. Today you and I get to make our debut as commentators, and we have So versus Aronian. How pumped are you?
And Danny, a week ago my SCC withdrawal reached an absolute crescendo. It reached a peak. This is the best moment because all of the SCC fun is still ahead of us. And an epic match, a great way to start the SCC commentary. An honor to be here. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. This is the event we all look forward to. I know we say it. It's our Super Bowl. It's our whatever. Am I even allowed to say Super Bowl? I don't know. Let's talk about the matchup ahead because we have 2 SCC veterans. It kicks off at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 8 minutes from now if you're wondering. So stop whatever you're doing and focus up. It's Wesley So versus Levon Aronian. That is today's matchup. But before we get into that, Danya, let's take a bird's eye view of our 16 players in this year's edition and your thoughts on maybe your favorite matchup that we're not covering today.
Listen, if water doesn't start to erupt from both sides of your mouth when you look at these matchups, Danny, then that means you don't like chess. If you want a litmus test of whether you should be a chess fan, just look at this list and observe your reaction. Hikaru Nakamura taking care of business yesterday. Wesley So and Levon Aronian. This promises, Danny, I think, to be a much closer match.
I think it will be. That's no disrespect to Yu Young Yi. Of course, that's just respecting that So and Aronian are so closely contested in so many different ways. We're going to get into that. But before we do, again, as we tee up all the action, remind some of the fans who maybe somehow are watching their first Speed Chess Championship of what this event is all about. It's 16 players in a knockout format. The players accumulate points as the clock runs down. It is the best format in chess. I make no apologies for claiming it. You get a point for a win, a half a point for a draw, just as you do in traditional chess tournaments. If we are tied, we will have Armageddon by bidding. Danya, looking at the time control and how that clock counts down, we make our way from slower blitz ultimately to bullet. What is your favorite time control?
Well, Danny, this is my favorite format because it always promises a close match. I don't think this will come as a surprise as bullet, and I make no apologies for that. Those 30 minutes, Danny, always have. Therein lies the magic of the SCC format. You can make it close till the very last seconds.
Yeah, and often the matches do come down to the very last second. We're going to talk about why today's matchup might be one of the hardest predict of all in the entire event because we lack information about what these two might do against each other in bullet. We're going to talk about that. But on that note, we talked about Coinbase. We're super excited to have them as our presenting partner. We also have our partner for game analytics, and that is Deloitte. Deloitte is the industry leader for them, an industry leader in their field on bringing the types of analytics and data that we're going to be bringing to you all SCC. We're super excited to be partnering with them. They are a natural fit with Chess.com's mission to grow the game, tell the game within the game, the storylines we want to break down. And on that note, we see this head-to-head matchup brought to us by Deloitte. And Danya, what stands out to you?
Well, what stands out to me is the fact that Wesley So is considered a veteran, according to almost everybody in the chess world. But Levon Aronian is the veteran in this matchup, and their head-to-head is really close. Yes, it's a small lead for Wesley So, but they've made 14 draws, and I think that promises us a very close match. I think Wesley is the favorite.
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that. But man, Levon can absolutely make it close and keep it close.
When I look at that card there, the thing that stood out to me is they have never played in the SCC, but they've also never played against each other in Bullet. They've played in many other events on the site. The Bullet Chess Championship is one that has seen both of them compete in. So that's a really interesting dynamic, Danya, heading into this, right? We normally can look at each player side by side in the time control and get pretty accurate. Because that Bullet portion is a bit of a dark corner for us, a dark forest, it's going to make it hard to predict this thing. And perhaps that's why, as we look at the Smarter Chess prediction, which Smarter Chess is also a veteran of the SCC, and as we look at this breakdown, maybe that's why it is such a coin toss according to Smarter Chess, Danya.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit surprised at this, and this is absolutely, no disrespect to Levon Aronian, who is an amazing blitz player and a very experienced blitz player, but Smarter Chess is predicting a lead for Levon in the 5+1 section. You called it, Danny. The Bullet is a complete black hole. We have absolutely no idea if it's going to be a blowout. Is it going to be 5-5, as Smarter Chess predicts? And that's what makes these SCC matches so exciting. We seem to have gone through every possible iteration of these players, and yet we always seem to find new combinations of top players who haven't faced each other in particular formats.
Yeah, and because it's a single game, it's a single match, not a single game match, but it's a single match, someone maybe isn't feeling their freshest that day, not on form. They don't have a lot of time to figure it out, Danya. We always say there's no rest day, no rest for the weary in the SCC. It goes by quickly, so we're gonna see what happens in each one of these time controls. Will Smarter Chess be right, or will the fans be right? I want to talk about the fact that the fans predicted something a little bit different in terms of what they see happening between Wesley So and Levon Aronian. I'm not gonna lie, and I think I'm gonna maybe steal a little bit of your thunder here. This is meant with no disrespect to Levon. I feel like you and I probably lean a little more this prediction than we do the other one from Smarter Chess. I also see Wesley as a slightly heavier favorite, and I'm kind of with the fans on that. What do you think?
I agree with that, Danny, and I think it's really important for fans to understand that when we say that, it's not because we think Levon is bad at chess, or we don't think Levon can kick anybody's butt in the chess world. He absolutely is and absolutely can, but there's several component parts to it, Danny, and a big one I think is experience. Wesley has gone very far in the SCC time after time. He's just more experienced on the platform, Danny. Wesley has played more 5+0 and 3+0 and definitely more Bullet than Levon on the site. And we already know from the player interviews that the players do get butterflies in their stomach. It doesn't matter how many tournaments they've played. The SCC hits different. They know you've got 15,000 people watching. You've got Danny Rensch commentating the game. You want to bring your A game, and it doesn't matter who you are. You will feel nervous. And I feel like Wesley might have a small edge in handling that anxiety, which always hits the players during the match.
Well, you also got $150,000, which is a lot of money for 16 players in a Blitz event, right? I mean, this is actually the highest prize fund we've ever had. And so there is a lot on the line legitimately. It's why we see them hold back no punches. They bring their opening preparation. They bring their A game. And the other thing I'm going to highlight is as far as why I also see Wesley as a slight favorite. Not diving into the conversation of cheating or the algorithms we do as we analyze all top players and we really look at the data all the time. We are making exceptions for nobody. And when we look at what these players are capable of, we have consistently said that Wesley So, even if he doesn't win as much as Magnus and Hikaru in these formats, his style is so ruthlessly accurate. He is the most accurate blitz player we even have on the platform. He plays 3-1 chess closest to a computer than anyone else we have on the platform. And that is something that is so hard to beat. It's why he's a 3-time finalist. If you want to do the math on that, Wesley So has only lost to 2 people in this format. Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen, Danya. And there's a reason for that. And I think that, again, it's just hard for me to not see him as the favorite. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to confirm what you're saying. That is a great duo to lose to. That stat really says everything you need to hear. I mean, Wesley's consistency is so freaking brutal to deal with.
It is. And we know he's getting ready. We know the games are getting ready. I'm getting ready. We're in the countdown here. Can you feel it? It's the Speed Chess Championship season. I want to scream like a little kid on Christmas. The SEC is here. Let's go. And I know, as we said, Hikaru kicked it off yesterday. But sitting here with you, Danya, I think we are about to have a really fun 4 hours. And let's take it away.
Let's take it away indeed. The game will begin momentarily. Wesley will have the white pieces in game one. I mean, the openings are always a big X factor in the SCC because some players, they adhere to their main classical repertoire. Others go one B3 and one B4. And I think Wesley falls more on the former side of that spectrum than the latter. I'm expecting a lot of Italians. I'm expecting maybe some Berlins. And I'm curious what Levon will bring to the table with the white pieces. But Wesley will have white to start the match.
Yep. Wesley does get white. We see Levon is kind of laughing a little bit. Another thing about the Speed Chess Championship. This was one of the first high-level events we did all the way back in 2016. Oh my gosh, I feel old today, Danya. Where we really started bringing to life the webcam from the player's bedroom, and adding that kind of intimate feel of how these guys feel in their natural environment. Something you don't always see when they're in a hotel ballroom. So seeing Levon relaxed, whatever's going on with him there, kind of laughing. We're working on getting the games, everybody. But okay, so here's what I'll say. I know we leaned the direction of the fans, Danya, and a little more Wesley is a bigger favorite than Smarter Chess predicted. But I'm gonna say this. I think the Smarter Chess prediction must hold up for Levon to have a chance, and even more so, and that I think for Levon to win this, he does need to take the 5-1 portion, just as Smarter Chess predicted, but maybe by more than just a game. Maybe by 2 or 3 games is what Levon needs. Do you think he's coming into this matchup knowing that he has to strike early?
I think that's exactly how he's approaching the match. I think he's not necessarily banking on the bullet, right? You can't really approach this like Hikaru, like, okay, if the match is tied going to the bullet, I know I'm the better 1+1 player. I mean, Levon doesn't have any intel either. He knows he's never played Wesley. So in the longest portion, I think he's got the best chance. I agree with Smarter Chess on that one. And I'd call attention to the 3-point rule, Danny. In all my years commentating the SCC, I think the point when a match starts to deviate from what I'd call a close match is when the lead grows to 3 or higher. Yeah. Several players, including Hikaru, have pointed this out in the interview. So that's kind of the bounds that you want to keep this match in if you're Wesley So.
Yep. And we see Hikaru has taken that approach against Wesley in their other matchups. I remember commentating where Hikaru was like, hey, I knew as long as I was within 2 or 3 games against Wesley, I was probably still the just slight favorite in Bullet. And I think he entered 2 of the finals against Wesley in a couple of the years that Magnus didn't play, down by 2 games, and sure enough, Hikaru won in Bullet. And so I came down to the wire. I think Wesley knows he probably is the favorite as the time controls get faster. But that doesn't mean he wants to start off on the wrong foot either. I'm really curious to see what openings he plays here, Danya, because we know that Wesley has the ability to lock it up, right, and play, as you and I have commentated, the most exciting draws in chess. He has the ability to lock it up. And speaking of locking it up, I think the games have just gotten underway. So you and I are going to lock it up and get this chess going here. I see the moves being made, and we're going to bring it to the fans ASAP.
Okay, well, we are here, move 50. And that's the Sicilian with 2 E6, and Wesley going right down the main path. We've got a pretty standard Sicilian position here, Danny, with not yet opposite side castling, but I'm having a hard time believing the black is going to go queenside as well.
Yeah, and right now there's a G2 pawn hanging. I don't know. You look at us. We are going to have a great day, man. We are. Our psyches are aligned. I couldn't even complete the sentence before you said it. Do you want to quickly run through the opening? We don't even necessarily have to bring up the analysis board,
Sure.
But I just want to quickly show the fans how we got here, since we did join the game in progress, as they say, and just rattle off the Sicilian.
Absolutely. So we had a Paulsen, we had a Taimanov Sicilian, so the queen coming out to C7, and this is pretty standard fare. Queen F3 has been a very fashionable move, Danny, for a couple of years now. You're preparing quick queenside castle. And, okay, castle's queenside. Knight E5, queen G3. Yeah, this is still very much theory. There is a sack on B5 that's possible here. But instead, Wesley going in the center, striking with F4, and dropping his bishop back. Pretty normal stuff. B4 striking at the knight. The knight goes off to the side. H5 is a very typical move in these types of positions because it secures the knight and threatens E4.
Right.
E5 attacking the knight. The knight jumps into the center. Queen drops back attacking the knight. Now they bring the rest of their pieces out. Bishop B7, bishop D3, knight C5. Trade. Queen E2. Rook comes out. King to the side. And the current position after G6, which stops this very typical breakthrough F4, F5.
Wow. Okay. I love it. You made the Sicilian sound easy there, Don. You should consider chess commentary. Knight of 3, an interesting retreat, but one that is designed to remove that all-important bishop for the dark squares, Danya. We should highlight the holes, right? D6, F6. Those squares become even more long-term problems if those dark square bishops get traded. So a big kind of positional decision here by Levon. Although I will say, I feel like overall, this is not the scariest Sicilian for black, right? I mean, you have to appreciate Aronian's position. I think it's solid, and black is doing fine.
I think black is doing totally fine. The knight is threatening potentially to jump into f2 and eliminate this bishop, after which black is going to have a monopoly on the light squares, and the bishop could potentially stick itself on d5. So I think Wesley's got to be very careful. There's a lot of forks in the air, right? If you go rook f1 to stop knight f2, you walk into knight e3 with another fork. I really like the way this has unfolded for Levon. He's got a big time advantage too, and Wesley going all in.
Yeah, and the knight comes to g5. As we highlighted, those f6 and d6 squares, everyone. The point is, it may be hard to reach those squares, because if you put the knight on e4, black will probably just take it, trade off the bishop, but black has to be careful that a knight doesn't get there. We should probably point out that bishop takes a6 is not a move, because at the end, black will have queen takes c2, so for anyone spying that pawn on a6, white can't really take it. And here comes the knight into f2. Yeah.
There's an x-ray on the rook. So if you go rook d2, apparently that's possible, but that's a crazy idea. You can sack the rook on g1 with check, then drop the rook back to d1. But none of that. Wesley wants nothing to do with that. He drops it away to c1. So Wesley kind of going defensive here. Now, Danny, after the exchange on d3, I think white might try to go knight e4 and eliminate this bishop at all costs.
Yep. The big moment here for black, though, because he has to decide just how much for a win does he want to play for, right? But, okay, castles to me is revealing that Levon looks at the clock. Danya, he looks at the position, and he likes his chances to strike first. He gets the king out of dodge so he can use another rook in the attack, and there's even bishop d5 coming at some point. And I have a problem here, Danya, which is white has nothing. Where's the attack for white? Like, nowhere to be found, right? So I'm really liking black's chances, even if objectively Engine is like, okay, hold on. Wesley's going to go all in and sacrifice.
What was that, Danny? Says Wesley. Oh my god, g4, and he wants to play hg, rook takes g4. There's no doubt about that. Open up the h file and go after black's king. It takes two to tango, says Wesley so in the first game.
Bro, you got to show it. Let's show it. I mean, Wesley pointing out that I'm being a superficial commentator. After takes, we get shake and bake. The queen comes to g4, and this is actually super scary for black. Here comes queen h4 and mate on h7. That bishop on d3 might sack on g6, followed by knight takes e6, and you bail out with a draw, right? That's an idea just right there.
And king g is a big problem, because knight takes f7 is now a huge threat with queen takes g6 coming in. So I don't know if Levon wants anything to do with this. That would mean he doesn't want to touch he's already taken on g4. Does he leave the rook on g4, but then it swings over to h4.
Wow. And you see the evals giving rook takes g4 a brilliant mark. I would argue the move before it was really the one deserving of the symbol, but either way, Wesley has flipped this thing around. The time advantage is not as big as it was for Levon either, and in a practical game, whose king is going to be feeling the heat more? This is about to get real spicy.
King g7 was a great defensive move. They're preparing to meet rook h4 with rook h8. And he plays rook h8 anyway, just preemptively occupying that h-file. Wesley could continue trying to smash through the king side with this move f5. And we could get total fireworks here, Danny. But 30 seconds for Wesley so, and he takes it quietly. He plays h3. And look at Levon playing on the king side. Both players going on the king side here.
Both players playing on the king side. Computer doesn't like queen to d2. I'm not sure what to do when I only have 30 seconds here, because if you don't see a knockout, hard to find moves. And Levon improving the queen, but he goes for it. Knight takes f7.
Oh my
bishop
gosh.
takes g6 check. Oh my gosh.
Crazy fireworks in the first game, Danny. Queen takes f4. There's rook g6 and rook f6. And Levon has to walk on hot coals here as he drops back to e4 with a fork of his own.
Dude, what a move to find under pressure. You fork the queen and rook and force white to part ways with the light squared bishop. That's a defensive masterful move. I can't speak. Rook takes g6. What?
And it continues. Sacrifice after sacrifice. What is happening here?
What is going on? He's going to be down a rook at the end of this combination, but the black king will be on fire. This is Bishop takes and queen takes d7, and there's rook to g1 coming.
Oh. And suddenly White's king is the safest one in the house. It's got the best. It's got the presidential suite at the Ritz Carlton, and it's Black's king, which is under fire. Now, why is Levon thinking, Danny? Because he's thinking about actually taking the knight and keeping the heat on the queen. I think he should take the rook and go into that line, but can he navigate these complexities with only 27 seconds left?
He does it. He takes it. Oh my God, Wesley played knight d6 instead of... What a move!
This, hitting the rook. The other rook and the bishop is hanging.
Look how fast Wesley knew king h6 was coming. He played queen e1 instantly.
Yeah, but Levon, he's still up a rook. I think he should play bishop takes e4 here and just try to recapture on c8. He finds it, but Levon might have the initiative here.
Bishop takes. He's winning back not all of his material, but at any point he can take the rook. But look at this. There's a mate on f7 coming. What a defensive move there.
We're going to see an endgame. We're going to liquidate into an endgame. Levon can take the draw.
Or we're going to see a draw. I was going to say, I think we're going to see a draw with no time on the clock. Wesley bails out for a perpetual, if I had to guess.
Well, Levon, last chance to go for it, but I think a great decision. And what a first game. One of the craziest first games of an SEC match I've ever seen.
Yeah. That was one of those games where the final score does not tell the story. Anyone tuning in is like, oh, good. I didn't miss anything. They drew the first game. Shame on you. You missed a lot. And we are locked and loaded here. Welcome again to the Speed Chess Championship presented by Coinbase. I want to say the most exciting game on turf, but it's on 64 squares. It's not on turf. Or, insert sports cliche.
That was absolutely incredible, and both players doing an amazing job of navigating those complexities. Yes, there were some inaccuracies, but largely there were no mistakes, Danny, no big blunders there in the time scramble. And Levon saying, everybody, we need to chill out. He plays a very quiet line, an anti-Sicilian that I've heard referred to as the Yudasin variation after Israeli GM Leonid Yudasin. That's where the bishop comes out to c4, and he's essentially playing an Italian against the Sicilian.
Right. And to highlight that, the Italian is an e4, e5 opening where White's approach, especially these days at a high level, is to have a very, exactly as Danya's pointing out. Oh, I'm going to let you do it. I'm sorry, I'm not good at letting you drive. The point is the structure is flexible for White, and at any moment you might get d4, e5. These sort of things allow White to pick and choose the plan, and that's what you were trying to highlight there. I'll let you complete the sandwich from now on.
It's all good. No, I think we're itching to point out the same thing. This position could almost be confused for some sort of Italian, with the only difference being obviously the pawn is on e6 rather than on e5, and typically that favors black because the f5 square is guarded. The knight on g3 might have to seek alternate arrangements if it wants to make an influence on the king side. We're probably going to see h6. I think the knight's dropping back to h3, potentially paving the way for a march of the f-pawn down the sideline.
He wants f4, maybe f5. He wants the whole thing. Give it to him. You talk about how e6 is a more flexible move for black. It guards the f5 square, and this might actually allow him to be more aggressive on the queen side. This almost reminds me in some ways, Danya, of a King's Indian attack, right? Not exactly the same structure, but White's going to go for the king side. Black will have the space and the pawn storm coming at the queen side, and it's a bit of a race in the end.
And it's an interesting parallel between the last game. We don't have opposite side castling here. We have same side castling, but we have a similar structure of the game where black plays on the queen side, white plays on the king side, and white's actually playing in the center right now. Knight d7, apparently a mistake, and it might be because the pawn can be shoved through to d5, Danny. Now, I think this is worth showing really quickly as Aronian ponders his next move. And never mind. He's showing it for us.
Yep. And the main reason, everyone, is that now you're prying at that e6 pawn. We can bring up the analysis board to show the idea. If that e6 pawn blinks, either by capturing d5 or by playing e5, here comes the f5 square. Exactly as, and you might even play it right away before taking back on d5, right? Knight f5 is just great. So this is the kind of thing White is aiming for, is the f5 square for the knight, which leads to all the attacks. But if you back up, Danya, the point is, even if you don't take d5, White can then play c4 and reinforce this grip. And so this is scary stuff. I think, in fact, he does it. I think Levon will just reinforce the center, because why be in a rush? You can use f5 later for the knight. You could even play queen d3 in some positions and get a battery going. I like White's position.
White is better.
Yeah.
White is better, but apparently there was some sort of crazy sack on h6. That was impossible to find. And Wesley's saying, yes, I'm cramped, but I don't have any weaknesses. So as long as Wesley can keep the king side under supervision, and that might even involve playing g6 and violating that rule about not pushing pawns on the same side where you're being attacked. But he ultimately does need to find a job for this dark squared bishop. Levon is going to find a great job for his dark squared bishop on b2. So the pressure is real, but Wesley is always so good at holding these positions together.
It's so funny because if you were to draw out a position that defines activity, can you just draw some diagonals for me? Right? B2, C2, D2 for the queen. I mean, this is like, you can't really show beginners a better way to get active pieces, especially on diagonals. And there you go. At the same time, you highlighted it well. Wesley has no positional weaknesses, and that means like there's no doubled pawns, there's no isolated pawns, there's nothing really to write home about if Levon doesn't convert on that activity. And I love those dynamics because it means that White has to be accurate in executing his initiative or Wesley's going to hold.
That's exactly what it means. And Wesley's got some good squares too. Yes, he's cramped, but look at this. The knight can jump out to e5. The bishop from b7 can move back to its initial square, controlling some light squares. The knight on g3 is fully restricted. Robert Hess, I don't know who he is, but I heard he likes to point this out. Pawn 2 squares away from the knight, controlling the knight's advancing squares. And Wesley tiptoeing, knight f8, maybe opening up the diagonal for his bishop. He's holding it together really, really well thus far.
But you know what Levon's going to do? He's going to try to change that Robert Hess structure. Probably Harry will get involved at some point with h4, h5. If you can't, oh my gosh! Can I just give a shout out to a battery? That is a battery you don't see every day, and boy do I love it. The queen comes behind the bishop, and we have liftoff. This is actually kind of tricky, and now Wesley's going to take his time. Just because the engine says it's close to equal, everybody, put it away, you armchair engine quarterbacks. This is such a dangerous position for Black. He has to find every accurate move.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned the battery. Wesley might have to call triple A roadside assistance here because his knight on f6 might get stuck by the side of the Fruba. But queen e7, great multi-purpose move. He's controlling the e-file. What Levon wouldn't give to be able to play rook e1 right now. And Wesley saying, again, you're attacking on the king side. I'm attacking on the king side too as the pawn moves forward to h4. That knight on g3 is starting to kind of feel suffocated. And knight e4 here could be met with knight 8 h7 to defend the knight on f6. Can I show this really quickly? If White plays this move knight e4, you don't take because you give away your dark squared bishop. Instead, you have this lovely move knight h7, and everything guards this knight. If White plays rook e1, queen can drop back. And Black's position still safe as houses because of the back rank problems facing White on e1. This is on the board, except he's played queen d8 rather than queen f8.
And he's pointing out what we said. Yes, it looks scary. Yes, White's activity is real, but where's the beef? Where's the money, right? Show me the money, right? And Wesley is super solid. The eval says that it's accurate chess here for Black. And we talked about this with Wesley's style. The dude just locks it up. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, never beats himself, and Levon's going to have to deliver. At this point, the computer even says Black is a teeny bit to be preferred, right? Which is crazy, but that just shows you the accuracy with which Wesley plays these positions, even when they're optically tough.
I would still take White, I think, just because of the pressure down this diagonal. Again, Levon with a time advantage. He's had a time advantage in both games, over a minute extra, but another excellent defensive move by Wesley, just disengaging from the battle down the e-file, and that gives him a little bit more leverage when it comes to potentially even dropping this knight back to e8. Obviously, knight takes c4 has to be monitored, although it's not possible for the foreseeable future because this bishop on g7 is so vulnerable, Danny. But we've got basically a standoff in the center. Who's going to win that standoff?
Well, now Levon plays the pawn to h4 the old-fashioned way, and Wesley finds the best computer move, knight e8. Opens up business on the long diagonal, says, let's trade some pieces. Because every piece that comes off the board, Black's position gets a little easier to play, not feeling so cramped. And by the way, the h4 pawn is under fire right now. That queen on d8 has some devious intentions. So I'm looking at this and just feeling like Wesley knows how to hold these positions. By the way, both players playing with over 95% accuracy in this game thus far.
Incredible. G3 guarding the pawn on h4, and this move knight e8, it opens up a new set of battles now between the two bishops, which are facing each other directly. And bishop f5, another great move. Now the knight on e4 is pinned. The bishop on c2 undefended. I would consider a move like rook e2 here, just trying to keep all of your minor pieces stable. But I think we're going to get a bunch of trades in the center imminently, and Wesley might secure his kingside, his queenside here with a5.
Yep.
And he does.
I think a nice opening for Levon, all things considered, because that a6 square can poke at d6. Okay, he goes all the way to a7. But the problem is that I think white is not going to have that knight on e4 much longer. Whether black trades it or something else happens. So, oh, wait, rook e8's a mistake. Apparently, maybe that's because black actually missed this.
Oh, there was a huge opportunity there for black to go not to e4, but to g4, and then involve that knight via f5 to d4. But that ship has sailed. What do you make of this endgame, Danny? Who's playing for a win here? Hard to assess.
It's easy for us to see that because the engine pointed out that there was an opportunity. But from a human being perspective, I appreciate what Wesley has done. He did exactly what he meant to do moves ago. And look, here comes more trades. The queens are going to be off the board by force because otherwise the knight on h3 would hang. And black is holding this game. This is not a game where you really get worried about it. And so, despite the pressure, despite the funk that Levon brought, we know he can bring the funk. I miss his old room where he had that disco ball in the background. Go look at the old Speechless Championship archives. But I think this one's going to end peacefully. That doesn't tell the story, Danya. We've had two very exciting games despite the two draws to start.
And it's easy to look at this game, especially toward the latter stage, and say, oh, Wesley was better. He could have played bishop g4. But he was on the defensive for most of the first part of the game. And it's very clear the job that he set himself, which was to hold this position, make that draw, and he did that very comfortably. It's always hard to find the moment when you can seize the initiative. As we see the players, once again, repeating moves. There's nothing to be done here, Danny. The position's totally locked up, no progress to be made, and the players kind of looking at each other virtually and saying, let's move on to the next game.
Nietzsche. Okay, draw, and we have moved on. We are 2 games in to this second matchup of the 2023 Speed Chess Championship, presented by Coinbase. Thanks for being with us. And Danya, well, a lot of smoke, but no fire just yet, right? It's just all peace.
No fire just yet. And I think the 5+1 time control contributes to that. You know, if we had 2 minutes less on the clocks to start the game, both of those games would have been decisive, that's for sure. So the players doing a great job handling their time, well, pausing at the right moments and playing good, high-quality, accurate chess. I don't think anybody is begrudging these 2 peaceful results, Danny.
Agreed. Anyone just tuning in, you see it's a tied match, so at the very least you didn't miss a decisive result yet, but you have missed some exciting chess, so stick with us. It's a Tuesday in the world of internet chess, so we know what that means, Danya. It means Title Tuesday, it means everybody's streaming, it means the craziness involved, so no matter where you're watching chess, we love it. But this is the one for the most marbles, I would say. This is the one with the highest stakes.
For sure. This is definitely the one with the highest stakes. This is the one that people ultimately will end up watching. No disrespect to Title Tuesday. Super exciting event, but you don't want to miss any additional SCC action. And speaking of SCC action, we have an entirely different type of structure here in Game 3. We've got a locked-up queenside. This started out as a kind of a weird London system-y Slav. Now we've got a bunch of trades on the king side and opposite-colored bishops in the middle game, which is a whole lot more exciting than opposite-colored bishops in the endgame. I like white's position. I like the H-file. I like white's space advantage on the queen side.
And I'm going to do a little grant. See, opposite-colored bishops happen early in a game, and often those games become some of the most exciting attacking games we see, right, Danya?
Absolutely. And this game as well, because black has to respond in some way to the encroaching pressure on both sides of the board. And the knight can come out to f3, the pawn can dive into f5. And man, I mean, black might have to respond by trying to chip away at white's queenside, Danny.
Yeah. The h7 pawn is weak. That's a very, very dangerous move to put the king over there, but he has intentions to eventually put a knight on f8. Yeah, I was going to say, he went right in for it. This is crazy. Knights might be on h8 and f8. Although that h4 square is also interesting. I anticipate white might play knight f3 first here before you rush forward with either the f or the g pawn to kind of overprotect that square and then get a little more jiggy when it comes to launching an attack on the light square. So I think knight f3 is... Oh, okay, he plays queen c2. You know what he wants? He just wants to castle long. Get the king out of there.
And he wants to play f5, and I think he should do it now. What he should not do is play the automatic b4. This is a very instructive moment, Danny. It's worth showing really quickly. b4 is what most people would play automatically, but after a5, suddenly white's queenside collapses. And for newer players, it's always very important to ensure that your rook on a1 is defended in these situations, because here you simply drop the rook. And look at Wesley. He paused, he understood, and he said, I'm going to release the tension, and then I think he's going to follow up with f5 with the kingside attack, threatening to crash through with great effect.
It's funny, you're right. I think f5 first was actually even more powerful, and I think the computer agreed with you. But either way, you pointed out this very instructive. You can't just automatically defend a pawn with a pawn there. Oh. And look at Levon. He appreciates
D5.
How big this moment is, dude. He plays c5. I love this because he points out, everyone, that often in games where the kings are destined to be on opposite sides of the board, even though white hasn't castled yet, what matters is the tempi, the timing, the initiative, much more than a single pawn. And Levon playing c5 creates a mess on purpose, and now we are really going to get some fireworks.